Hi guys. In my last video I was talking about, stock, how to make passive income with stock photography and other things you can do to make a passive income. This video is about how I'm going to take my years of material and work through it, try to find what is good for stock and what's not, and what do I need to keep in mind with stock footage. First of all, like I told you, I have years of material that I have to go through, and yeah, I must admit that organizing my stuff hasn't really been my strong, not a priority. I just put it on a hard drive and I don't label it or anything, and and that has actually come to bite me in the ass a couple of times throughout the years. But what I did in the beginning of this pandemic, this quarantine, I actually took my photos. It's not perfect now, but at least now I can find what I'm looking for. I managed to set up a nice catalog in Lightroom. There is a link in the description if you want to know how to do that. It's very important that you do it. You make a habit of it after every shoot. Or organize your stuff. It will save you a lot of time, and it will make you money in the end. But also I have a lot of video files, and that was, if my photos were a mess, my video files were even bigger mess. They're everywhere, and because they're bigger files, and sometimes you just put it where you have space. Some is in my laptop, some is in my computer. Hard drives there, hard drive. It was just a mess. So what I've been doing the past days is to try to get this organized. I bought a huge external hard drive, and I'm trying to get my stuff organized there because I'm preparing to put stuff on stock, and I want to start with things that give me the more money, and videos is going to give more money than photos, and also it gives me an excuse to organize my stuff, but I have a lot of videos. I have drones, I have better quality stuff with my 1DX and stuff like that, and I have the Osmo, a lot of types of video. And what I decided to start with, to find a starting point, because it's a lot of stuff and I need a starting point, I need to get organized, was to I'm gonna start with going through my drone shots, and now once I've organized it, I'm just gonna start with the older stuff and then work my way to the newest, and start with that. I think it's a good strategy. At least it's a strategy. So as you can imagine, I have a lot of drone footage, and not everything I have can be used as stock. Because, like I told you, I'm not a stock photographer. Stock is not a thing when I shoot. I'm not thinking about stock. So if I need to crank up the ISO, I do it, which can result in a little grain in my footage, which is fine for me because I'm using my videos and photos to tell stories. So I always try to come across the message that quality is not just technical stuff. It's the story, it's the feeling, it's the moods which is in your photo or your video. But for stock photography, that's not true. You need to have clean, sharp images. Even if you have great stuff, if it's not sharp, if it's not clean, if it's not noise-free, it will be rejected. So even if I can use some of this stuff, it's fine for my YouTube videos and everything else that I do, it might be rejected as stock. So that doesn't mean if you get rejection, that doesn't mean you have a bad footage. It just means it could be noisy, or there's something wrong with the technical aspect of it. So not being a stock photographer, this is not high in my priority. Of course, I strive to have everything correct. The exposure, I nail the exposure. I aim for sharpness. The only thing I give discounts on is light sensitivity. I do crank my ISO if I need to. So not everything I have can be used as stock. So I need to go through everything and go through the videos and find like 10-15 seconds sequences from my videos that I will put on stock. So they don't really need more. 15 seconds is a good time for stock footage. If you look at this footage here, this is shot in the blue hour, and I like it. It's the town of Vík in south of Iceland, and I like this shot, and I've used it in my videos, and I would basically use it for anything I do. It's beautiful. It's very atmospheric and very up my alley. But if you pixel peep, if you look into the dark areas of this footage, you can see noise because it's shot just like at sunset or after sunset even. So this would for sure be rejected. And like here I'm shooting against the sun, and I like to do that. And also this video I would use for anything I was making for myself, but it has flare, and flare might be a ground for rejections. And also I'm shooting against the sun, so you can see that the highlights are blown out, so that could also be ground for rejection. And some of these, even if it has a little flare, I might actually upload it, but I wouldn't be surprised if this would be rejected. In difficult lighting, the drone footage it falls apart really fast in the shadow area. It is in my drone. I have the Mavic 2 Pro. I used to have the Mavic Pro, and the newer one has the 1-inch sensor, and it's a good sensor, but it is not very good in low light. So you need good light when you shoot with a small sensor like that. I mentioned the grain, but it also just in difficult lighting, it's not sharp. You can see here in the mountains that the mountains are just like mushy a little bit, but still not a deal breaker for me, for my videos, but definitely a deal breaker for any stock agency. Depending on your drone, you can manually set your aperture. I think this is possible in most drone at least. And in my Mavic 2 Pro, it sharpens at f4. And quality light. You need quality light to get sharp footage. You should shoot manual when you're shooting drone, and because you need to be able to control shutter speed. You need to set your shutter speed, because when you shoot at a very high shutter speed, your footage may get like jittery, and that doesn't look good. So you would need an ND filter to stop down the light, to stop down the shutter speed if you have too much light. ND filter is very important if you're shooting with a drone. So what are you looking for when you decide your shutter speed? Well, it's twice your frame rate. So if you're shooting, for example, in 24 frames per second or 25 frames per second, as we do here in Europe, your frame rate should be 150 of a second. But if you're shooting like in US standards, it's 30 frames per second, so you need 1/60th of a second. And if you go slow-mo, for example, like 120 frames per second, you want your shutter speed to be, well, you don't have 240, but you have 250, so you be there. You don't need to be exactly half. I mean, you can adjust the shutter speed if you need to adjust it a little bit to be correctly exposed. I do that, and I have never seen any issues with that. But the thing is, I don't always do this. When I shoot for advertising work or commercial stuff, or for stock, I try to make this correct. But very often, time is an issue, and I'm shooting. I have a group, or I'm doing something with other people, so I just can't be bothered with stuff like that. So I just overcrank it and use the footage for what it's shot for and not for stock. But if it matters, you need to set your shutter speed correctly. I will link in the description 2 and deep filters I recommend. Check it out, it will make a lot of difference in your footage. With color and color grading, creative color grading is not ideal when you're making stock footage. In fact, I would just do minimum amount of editing. Your footage, of course, it needs to pop. It needs to be, look at me, when people are browsing stock sites. And especially if you're shooting in log, where everything is very flat, then you need some color correction. But you need to leave some room for people to adjust the colors to match with their own footage, or to do their own creative color grading. Also with the color, try not to use auto ISO, because you might see the white balance change during the shot, and that's definitely not what you want, and you will never see that in quality footage, and could be ground for rejection at the stock sites. Always shoot at 4K, even if if you look at it, majority of stock footage that is sold, it's HD, and I think it's 90-something%. But when people buy 4K video from you, you will get much more revenue. Quality is better, usually quality is better, and also if you need to fix the footage by cropping a little bit, you can do that and upload it as HD. So it leaves you with options. If you shoot 4K, always shoot 4K. And always, compose your footage. Don't just send your drone up and shoot something. Just find, what are you shooting, and you adjust your frame until you have a balanced composition. The same principle as in photography. And I do have a video about composition, and that is also in the description. If you have recognizable people in the footage, you must get a model release. Without it, your footage will be rejected. However, if you think you have a footage that might be good for editorial purposes, news and documentary stuff and stuff like that, and you don't have a model release, you can actually upload it as editorial, and then you can actually use the footage without a model release. And the same goes with buildings, construction stuff, artwork, including graffiti even, and just everything that someone made. You will need a property release, or you will need a release for just about anything. So be careful with that. Usually these stock sites have a form, model release form and property release form you can use or adjust it to make it your own. Just make sure you get yourself familiarized with that. It's very important. And copyright, very important. Don't upload anything which isn't yours. And in most cases, that's pretty straightforward. You shoot the stuff, you shoot the footage, and you upload the footage. Yours. In some cases, it isn't actually that simple. For example, when I'm shooting with photography and I set up a scene, I have the idea, I get the props, I do everything, and I'm even gonna be a model in my own scene. So I need somebody to press the shutter. So I go, set everything up, set the camera, compose the frame, do everything, then I go in front of the camera and I ask my assistant to press the shutter. Now it's his work. He has the copyright for it. So it's in some cases it's not actually that simple, but here's just an idea of how you could mistake copyrighted material for your own footage. Just keep in mind, be careful and study the copyright law in your own country. In some countries it's different, so I'm not going to go more into that. Just study it and know it. Know it's your stuff before you upload it. That's perhaps the most important thing. And as with faces and properties and artwork, logos and trademark cannot be visible in even if you are using a phone or something and you doing some travel footage of people taking photos of a scenery or something to sell as stock. If you can see the iPhone logo, it's no dice. You cannot use it. So you need to keep your eye open for logos and trademarks. Very important. Just in general, the stock agency you choose to work with, read through the rules and terms from that stock agency. Because if you violate their terms, you can be terminated without a warning. So I would definitely check out what you can and cannot do in each on each stock site. There are a lot of stock agencies. I'm gonna take that to another video, but my advice to you is to upload to more than one. Yeah, Shutterstock is by far the biggest of them, so at least do Shutterstock. So with that, I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned something from this video, and at least this is what I'm doing. This is what I'm trying to do now to make money with my drone footage for now. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.